Hello, I'm the Blue Look Iron Wings, and welcome back to modifying a Stampede. In the previous video, I'll link it down below, I disassembled the Stampede, talked through the mechanics of how it's worked. So, what and how am I modifying it? As you probably guessed, I'm British, so I'm sort of a bit biased towards the stuff we have over here. There's not really much of mod support for the Stampede, it seems, in other countries. But in this country, we've got the Blaster Smiths UK kit. Now, they've opted to use a 6 kg spring, a MOSFET for the power, a 10 amp fuse, and a little 12 volt 10 amp relay. The reasons are thus. You'll see in the previous video, we've got where the final gear interacts with the gear on the rack. Due to whatever reason, it's possible it may get caught engaged. And the problem is obviously, if it gets caught and it's still pushing, you're at full stall, and the motor will just draw more and more amps. So if it does jam, you hit that peak stall and the motor just keeps sucking down amps that your LiPo is going to provide it, this will blow and keep your blaster safe before your motor catches fire. So yeah, obviously not really quite so much on flywheels and stuff, because you can just pull off the rev trigger, but for this, because it's got that little mechanical sort of cycle control, you need this to keep it safe. This is just a mini blade fuse. There's a MOSFET and I think it's a 10k resistor, and this is used as the power switch. So that little switch on the side of the Stampede, turn it on or off, that triggers this. So you use a little like lower amperage current to drive the big amperage, obviously sucked down by the main motor. Yeah, you could put a great big, or if you're doing this country, a smaller micro switch in there, but it's a pain in the ass because you've got to put it in, you'll have to, you know, epoxy putty or hot glue it in or whatever. So you know what, we've got an existing switch that fits there, designed to be there and works well. So we'll just plug it into this. For those of you who are not familiar with MOSFETs, just think of them as being a solid state relay. As you may remember, the on-off switch is on one side of the shell, all the wires on the other. Now you're either going to want short wire, so there's not much to faff around when you put it back together, that's a pain when you want to open it, or a long wire, which is easier to open the shell, but you've got lots of extra wire you've got to do something with. So this is a 2-terminal GST connector, or any 2-pin connector will do. See, fits together. One side of this, one side of the shell, and one side of the other side of the shell with the on-off switch, which gives you the advantage of having a shorter cable, so you've got less to hide in the shell when you put it together. However, you get the advantage of being able to pull it apart. You do want to separate the shell. This is just a standard XT60 connector. When I put this in, I'll have to dig out the battery to remind myself which half goes on the blaster, which half goes on the battery. This, as I said before, it's a 12 volt 10 amp relay. Now in previous versions of the Stampede kit, what they do is they swap the little push switch underneath that cycle control lever. Now the problem with that is, if you don't get it set up right, it ain't going to work right. And it makes much more sense to keep that lower amperage switch there and get it to drive something chunkier. I mean, in theory, I suppose you could use one MOSFET to drive the whole thing. So yeah, this is a normal relay, if you will, and the cycle control switch will go on one side and the other side will drive your motor. The voltage on a Stampede controls how fast it fires, assuming it's obviously got the amperage to compress the spring at whatever speed you're asking of it. If you go too fast, that's when you get issues with it springing back and overrunning and not fully catching. But that was people doing stock things back in the day with a fistful of 9 volts getting 40 volts. I mean, I've had mine on a conventional 3S LiPo, 11.1 volts, and it was been fine. Power control, cycle control. So electrics is speed, not power. What does control the power? Well, as you may be aware, at its heart, it is a spring of a Stampede. So your power will be controlled by your spring. Now here we go, we've got a stock spring. I have no idea what the power of this is. Now the BSUK kit comes with a 6 kg spring, which claims to be 3 times the power of the stock spring. So I can only assume stock spring is about 2 kg. The BSUK kit comes with a 6 kg, I think it's Orange Modworks spring. I should have checked that before I started talking. They're currently out of stock. So somebody did a mass order from Blaster Tech in Australia. So I ordered a couple of these. The disassembly video you saw, I took that out. And also this, I may have pointed out before, there's a little hole there, some sort of air feedback hole. So I put a little bit of super glue on that and a bit of scrap yellow plastic. That scrap yellow plastic is actually from the air restrictor that came out of this. Why did the BSUK kit decide to use a 6 kg spring? I think I read on a thread somewhere, somebody did the maths and figured out that the most this could take reliably was 6 kg. Obviously the NF Strike is currently selling a 9 kg one, and that's most of what you see people using on Reddit. I've got one of them, I'll show you another at some point and play with it, but for now they seem to think that the sticking with a 9ish volt or 9.9 from the LiFe battery and a 6 kg spring gave maximum longevity. So obviously you can put stupid crazy springs or whatever you want, but you know, if you want it to last more than a couple of shots, so don't need to downgrade that power. I think Foam Data UK did some chrono of the BSUK kit with and without the air restrictor, and without the air restrictor with the 6kg spring, it seems to be getting about 90 FPS on average. Foam Data Services also recommended this is silicone lube, in theory with Teflon in it. Now the listing on eBay said it was with Teflon, the pictures had Teflon. When it turned up, you see Teflon still under there, that's been blacked out, so no idea. I was just going to use normal silicone lubricant or even that stuff, but that's what he recommended. You may have noticed I appear to be lacking an O-ring. I'll grab that in a moment, but I just want to talk about the back of the plunger tube here. You see it just slots on the back there. You've got a square hole for this thing to go through. This little bit here, that actually pushes as it goes forward on the back of the trigger release. However, the bit of interest here is this white thing. It looks a bit rubbery, and if you squeeze it enough you can feel a little bit of give in there. So this actually has, I suppose you call it, plunger tube padding on the back, because once this has got to the front, return spring is going to want to return it, and this will happily smash into the back of the catch plate. So it's got a bit of quite hard to compress rubber there to stop it. It kind of also implies that if you're going to pad the plunger tube, you should also be using fairly, say, sort of uncompressible rubber or something, not the cheap and easy to get foam. Now I did actually again ask FDS, as he seemed to know what he was talking about, whether I needed to pad the plunger tube, and he basically said, I ain't never done it, don't worry about it. I'm just getting that on there. That's good enough. He said you didn't need to, he didn't impact it, so you didn't need to worry about it. Well, that's all the way forward. Obviously this gets pushed all the way forward, catch drops, and this slams forward. So that does actually impact the end of the plunger tube, which would make me think that perhaps it does need padding, but he said he's done loads and none of them are balked, and my original one is done without padding, or without balking. He also said to not put any Teflon plumber's tape, PTFE tape, around the top of the plunger rod. The idea is, while you want a good seal, you want as little resistance as possible, and making it too tight is going to add that resistance. That's my understanding anyway. That's the standard seal. O-ring seems happy enough. I've given it a bit of a clean when I took it apart. I described the function of the floating plunger head before. £3.50 for this. No expense spared. I'm going to put, here's a little blob. I'm going to put one on the other side here. Just doing this to try and help the O-ring move around freely. I mean, if I put it on the outside, it's going to work its way underneath. So let's put some underneath. A little bit there. A little bit over here. So there you go. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Air restrictor removed, air hole restricted, silicone PTFE lubricant used. Should I be using anything on the back here? I'm not opened this yet. Let's have a look in here. Lithium based LM2 lube. Let's just put an excessive splodge there. I probably don't need to do this, but you know, I like the idea. It won't have any issues moving around here. I'll have a bit there, and we'll just wipe the excess on the back here. This is stuff that's going to interface with the catch. Right, plunge rod in, spring on, catch facing upwards the top of the gun, catch plate on with a bit facing down the back. I just need to reassemble this without breaking it, screws, or my face. Go, looks like it's covered in earwax now. I've just been outside and just removed the tip of that. Basically means it won't be catching on this door. Having just been to Quasar, I actually managed to get a jam where this little tooth thing here got ahead of the jam door, and it won't go all the way back fully, which caused it to kind of go into that infinite loop Stampede's doing where they run away. I'm going to dab some lube here and there. So we're going to give that a bit there. Lube will kind of move around a bit. I'm just throwing a big ugly lump there. Hoping that repeated usage will free it up. I don't want to put too much there because it's got a window under there. Smear you over there, feeling kind of dry. So I'm gonna paint this. I'll put a clump in this. It'll work its way through the gearbox. Can I see the normal gears? Yes, I can. Yeah, lube everything. Splodge for you. Splodge for you. Dinky splodge for you. Have one on your tip as well. Go for the excess. And not completely removing that, just freeing it up enough to hot power out of the way. There I slide catch through that, tuck the mech arm out of the way, drop that in there, briefly put that over the top so the spring has somewhere to rest. Right, let's drop the catch so that releases the plunger. Catch. Yep, that dropped the thing. And back you come. Yep, I'm going to say that's in more or less the right place. Right, just back on that. I need to drop the cover back on here, so I'll just go grab that. Right, that's the mechanical part of the modification done.